Hi everybody, welcome to Mtozana TV. My name is Mabanga SS, the student teacher from the University of Zululand. As you see here, I'm coming from University of Zululand, and I'm specializing with math, science and technology, as you saw there. Therefore today I'm going to look at the concepts. Then after concepts, I'm going to partially touch to the scholars for those concepts. Then lastly, I'm going to deal deeply with the acts. So according to my lesson objectives for today, in those concepts, those two concepts, the first concept will be education. The second concept will be teaching. Then according to scholars, due to short of time, I'm going to look at the South African scholar, of which is Dr. Nelson Mandela, and I'm going to look at Plato, that is a Greco or Athens philosopher or scholar. Then I'm going to look at lastly I'm going to look at the acts that are being practiced in an educational happenings that are happening in South Africa, or educational laws and regulations and ethics. So let me commence. Firstly, you hear people talking about the teacher as I'm the teacher. Sometimes people talk about an educator, sometimes people talk about teacher, but now there's a question that is there any difference between a teacher or an educator? So today I'm going to unpack some of the facts so that you can see the difference, if there is a difference. Actually, let me commence with the definition of what is education. Actually, what is education? Just take your time to think about it. Education refers to the act or a process of imparting or acquiring knowledge, developing the powers of the brain to reason and judge, and generally it refers to the preparing individual intellectually for a mature life. Meaning that if you are a teacher and you are being said to be an educator, it is where you must and you ought to have the intellectual. You have to reason. You have to know the ethics, the etiquette, the laws, the regulations if you are an educator. But if you are a teacher, it is where you can just do something else, not that I've mentioned. So let me quickly go to the definition of teaching. If you talk about teaching, it is where we talk about the multifaceted or a complex activity that needs to be jungled or thrown to a learner in such a way that multifaceted activity needs to be unpacked. Therefore, if you talk about teaching, it is where just unpacking something that the learner doesn't know or a pupil. Therefore, I hope now we have got the partially understanding about the difference between education and teaching. Therefore, education, it is where you use the crucial and critical thinking and thoughts and philosophies, theories, and all those things. It is where you are dealing with education. But if you talk about teaching, it is just where you unpack something to a learner. So according to education, you can hear some people talking about the key. They say that education is the key to success. Yes, of course. It's a key because it has got that intellectual for a mature life. If you are educated, you will have the key. And as I've promised you before that I'm going to look at one of the scholars that are coming from South Africa. Dr. Nelson Mandela once said that education is a weapon that can change the world. Meaning that although you are too young, or although you are not as honored person, but you can change the world if you are educated. That is why he has once said that education, it's a weapon that can change the world. What is a weapon? A weapon is just something that used to kill something, something that destroys something. Therefore, if you are educated, you can destroy hunger or a poverty. You can destroy the culprits, the thugs, and all those bad things, or all those bad evils that are happening in this world, if you are educated. Therefore, according to Dr. Mandela, he have said that education is a weapon. Then, if you are already a teacher or a student teacher, now you can choose yourself that you are preferring to be an educator or a teacher. This is your challenge to study that and think about it. And I've promised you to talk about the acts. If you can remember, I've commenced with the name that education refers to the act or a process of imparting and acquiring information. Meaning that if you are doing education, you need to know the acts, the etiquette, the regulations. Sometimes the Bill of the Bill of Rights from the Constitution. If you're a teacher, you need to know the Bill of Rights. And before I'm coming to the acts, let me continue give you the three types of education. Education has got three types. The first type of education is an informal education, whereby at your home, or you are being taught by your parent, or elsewhere you are being taught. That's an informal education. It's about socializing. And secondly, we've got the formal education. If you talk about the formal education, it is whereby you study to a certain institution. As I've said before, that I'm coming from the University of Zealand, meaning that this education that I'm giving you right now is an institutional education. Then lastly, of which is the third one, is the enlightenment education. If you talk about enlightenment education, it is where now we use the philosophy and the theories and study deeply in education. As I've once said, that Dr. Mandela and Plato were the scholars to say something about education. And Plato said that you must teach what you preach, meaning that everything that you teach, you must also preach it, meaning that if you are an educator, you will be someone who is educated. So now I'm continuing to another level, of which is the acts. But firstly, let me send this message, let me announce this, that if you are a South African, you need to have your own constitution, where you are going to read everything about yourself, everything about the rights, and also you can download the acts from the Google search. So we have got also the Bill of Rights as South Africans. You need to give your time to read all those acts and to read all those Bill of Rights. So let me talk now about these acts. Since I am the teacher, or since I am an educator, I'm going to deal more especially with the educational acts, not any other acts, because I'm the teacher. And since we are living in a democratic country, I'm going to look at the acts after 1994. As you all know, that after 1994 there was the democracy in South Africa. Firstly, I'm going to look at the act that was promulgated or amended in year 1995, of which is the White Paper of Education and Training. It was being amended in 1995. Then also in 1995 there was the act that was amended during that year, of which is SACA, that is South African Qualification Authority, and that act is act number, I guess, 58 of 1995. And also in 1996 there was another act that used to be promulgated during the time. In 1996 there was let me remember quickly, there was in 1996 there was NEPA, that is National Education Policy Act, and NEPA is act number 27. Yes, NEPA is the act number 27 of 1996. Then again in 1996 there was also an act of which is SASA, that is South African Schools Act, and South African Schools Act is act number 84 of 1996. Yes. And also in 1997 there was also an act that was being promulgated and mandated, and that act is very, very crucial for yourself to study as the teacher, because I've observed most of the schools in South Africa are still using the corporal punishment. Therefore this act talks to you as the teacher not to use the corporal punishment at schools. That act is abolishing of the corporal punishment, and that act is act number 33 of 1997. And also we have got the here of which is Higher Education Act, and Higher Education Act is act number 101 of 1997. Then also in 1998 there was the Employment of Educators, and act number let me remember, act number 76 of 1998, that is the Higher Education Act. And also in 1998 there was an introduction of the FET, of which is Further Education and Training, and Further Education and Training, I guess it was act number 98 of 1998. And also as the years went on there was also an act that was being established and amended and promulgated in 2000, and that act is also crucial to yourself as an educator. That act is South African Council for Educators. If you are an educator, you must make sure that you read and study those rules and those principles, and those rules are talking about the misconduct of the learner and also the behavior of the teachers. Therefore that act is act number 31, if I'm not mistaken, of 2000. And lastly, I'm going to look at the last act that I'm going to look at today. That act is ABET, of which is Adult Basic Education and Training, and ABET is act number 50. Yes, it's number 52 of 2000. Yes, I hope my brain used to give me the correct act numbers and the years, and I think I did not make any mistake, because I used to study this thing perfectly. So what I can say about ABET is that if you see that you are not studying anywhere and you are old, no, it is too early for yourself, because there is this act that says that if you have got that age, you are still having the chance to study. I remember section that is section according to the Constitution of 1996, chapter 2, section 29, it stipulates that everyone has the right to basic education, including adult education and the further education. This means that if you are the South African and you need to continue with your studies, maybe after matric, maybe after grade 9, okay, you must continue to study. Actually, there is no limit if you are South African to study. There is no limit there is no limit of the age. You can start at any age. And if you combine this section 29 with APET, that is that basic education and training, it means that it is your challenge as the youth person, as a young person. It is your challenge as someone who has got only a diploma, or someone who has got only a degree or an honors. Actually, you need to start until you get your PhD. So thank you very much for sharing this information with me. Then I can say thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.